It's great to be with you. I am Seahawk Boy Mike back here on the Seahawk Boys Fearless and Brilliant YouTube channel. We're back here for one reason. I don't really want to do this. I'm depressed. I couldn't be more depressed about the future of the Seattle Seahawks right now. I'm probably as bummed out as I was on the day they traded Russell Wilson and traded away any chance they had to go back to another Super Bowl anytime, too. They've had multiple chances to fix that problem and have chosen to pass on every single one. Just like when they were sitting there for their second straight Super Bowl win on the 2-yard line and they had a chance to run the ball in or bootleg it to Russell Wilson, probably one of the fastest players on the field. And instead, Pete Carroll said, "No, I think I'll pass." Okay, well, so much for the video introduction. That sucked. Some screw ups here with my videos. But look, this is a video that has to be made. It's not one I want to make. I'm extremely unhappy about the way things went, and I think overall I would have to give the Seahawks a D for this draft. Their last two drafts are vastly overrated. At best, I'd give them a C plus B minus. They've brought in a lot of average players and haven't really moved the needle in terms of the quality of talent on this team. And this draft is no different. So let's take a look at it and just kind of go through who they took, why they may have taken them. That's completely speculation, and just sort of see what the hell's going on. Well, okay, in the first round, they took Byron Murphy II, a defensive tackle out of Texas with the 16th pick. As we know, they had offers. They had a good, solid offer from the Vikings to trade down to number 23 and pick up a fifth round pick, an additional fifth round pick, and a chance to go beyond that and pick up third and fourth round picks next year. They turned it down. I think they should have taken it. Everybody's praising his pick. Oh, he's a great player, yada, yada, yada. He's the best defensive tackle in the draft, talking like he's the second coming of Fletcher Cox or Aaron Donald. Well, let me clue you in on something. In order for him to really make an impact, he's going to have to be the second coming of Fletcher Cox or Aaron Donald, and I seriously doubt he is. I mean, I watched him play against Washington in the what was it, Sugar Bowl, and he didn't do much of anything. So I'm not particularly impressed by this guy. I don't think he's necessarily any better than the guys we already had on the line. The only thing he does bring to the table is that he's younger. Let's flip over to the Seattle Seahawks current depth chart and see exactly where they are. This is from ESPN. On defense, they have him as the starting defensive tackle. Jaron Reed is the nose tackle, backed by Jonathan Hankins, Leonard Williams, and Draymond Jones. Here's the thing. They've now stacked Draymond Jones and Leonard Williams back to back on each other. The reality is that Jones is here in the starting position, and Murphy's going to have to beat out Jaron Reed, Leonard Williams, or Draymond Jones to become a starter. Now, he'll probably be pretty much automatically anointed as the starter, but the reality is we already had three guys that are probably just as good as Byron Murphy. Murphy is going to have to be 25% better than Draymond Jones or Leonard Williams or Jaron Reed or even Mike Morris to really make this pick a value pick. So that's what we're looking at. Again, he's going to have to be a Pro Bowl level or near Pro Bowl level player as a rookie, or this doesn't improve the team significantly. Now, will the defense be better as a whole? Yes, it will. Why? Because Mike McDonald is the coach, because they have some British guy as the defensive coordinator instead of Ken Norton or Clint Hurt and Pete Carroll leading the way. That's the only reason why the Seahawks are going to be better. I don't see that Byron Murphy is necessarily a better player than Draymond Jones or Jaron Reed or Leonard Williams. So the reality is, guys, that I think at least one of these guys is going to have to go or get a new contract or maybe two of them. Maybe Reed and Jones are going to have to go in order to save some cap space to sign their draft picks. I don't know what their plan is for that. I'm sure it will suck when they do it because everything else they do sucks because John Schneider is a fucking clown, but that's the reality. So, the one thing you can say about Byron Murphy is that he's cheaper than Leonard Williams and he's cheaper than Draymond Jones. And he's younger than Jaron Reed and he's younger than Leonard Williams. That's about it. That's what he brings. So, this idea that he's some sort of game changing impact player, I think, is just a fantasy of people who want to be optimistic about the Seahawks and who are convinced their last two drafts are so great. Well, they're not. I did a video about a week or two ago saying that Seahawks' last two drafts aren't good. They just suck less than the previous seven. And that's the reality of the situation. This draft, however, does not suck less than those previous seven. It's just as bad. It's just as incomprehensible. And it seems like the Seahawks went back to a bunch of bad habits. So again, I don't see this way. I see Murphy behind Draymond Jones and Leonard Williams trying to find a way into this lineup, unless they cut somebody, which they may have to do to plug him in there. In terms of how he is as a player, I think you're being wildly optimistic if you think he's a Fletcher Cox or Aaron Donald kind of game changer that you got with the 16th pick in the first round. If he was that great a player, he'd go in the top 5. He didn't, and he's not. So stop gushing about this guy. Stop gushing about this guy like a $10 whore that just got paid $100. Stop it. Okay, he's not that great. So then with pick 81, of course, as we've already reviewed, they took Christian Haynes, an offensive guard from UConn who's played right guard the entire time. Now, some of you may ask, what's the difference between Christian Haynes and, I don't know, Damian Lewis and Anthony Bradford and Philip Haynes, guys they've all taken in that 3rd, 4th, 5th round range? The answer is nothing. The answer is he's just another one of those level value guys, the kind of guys that John Schneider drafts. And now everybody from Rob Staten, who I respect immensely, has gone on and saying, well, on the other hand, he's a lot better player than those guys. That remains to be seen. It remains to be seen whether he is as good as Damian Lewis was at right guard before they completely screwed him up and moved him to left guard for no reason when they brought in Gabe Jackson, who had been a career-long left guard, and moved him to the right and screwed him up too. It's a left-handed, right-handed thing. As Rob said on his live stream yesterday, it's like trying to figure out how to wipe your ass with your left hand. It's just not comfortable and not easy to do. Then we get to day 3. So I was still optimistic on day 3. Why? Because what I wanted them to do is I wanted them to get one of the top 7 quarterbacks in this draft, because every single one of them, I said, and I thought, and I believe, and I will stick to this, had star quality. Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, Michael Penix. J.J. McCarthy was 7th. Spencer Rattler, Bo Nix. Spencer Rattler was still on the board. I expected him to go 44th or 45th to either the Raiders or the Saints, who needed a quarterback. He eventually went in the 5th round at pick 150 to the Saints. The Seahawks still had, at the time, they were sitting there at 102, the 2nd pick in the 4th round, still had a chance to do something with the quarterback position after not drafting a quarterback for the last 2 off seasons. All they've done is trade for Sam Howell, who, as we have established for any fans there might be of this video blog, a stiff. So the hope is that Sam Howell could be unstiffed somehow. But what this team needed is to either get an ace starting quarterback like Michael Penix Jr. so they could trade or dump Geno Smith and get rid of his enormous cap charge, or pick one of the other quarterbacks. There was only one left by the time we picked at 16. And like I said, he would still have been there at 23. He would still have been there at 81. I would have taken him. Why? Because unlike the Seahawks, I prioritize the quarterback position. I am telling you, the only way the Seahawks ever get back to the Super Bowl in our lifetimes is if they have a star quarterback. And Geno Smith and Sam Howell are not stars. Howell could maybe become something close to Brock Purdy. I don't think he'll ever be better than Brock Purdy. I don't think he'll ever be as good as Brock Purdy, but he could get closer to Brock Purdy than he is now. But that's going to take a lot of rehab. He's basically going to have to go through therapy after being shell shocked the last 2 years in Washington. They're going to have to rid him of all of his bad habits before he can start improving. He is a major reclamation project, far less of a reclamation project than whatever it was behind the scenes that torpedoed Spencer Rattler, because everybody agreed he was a first or second round talent. I think he was a first round talent. I think Rob Staten agrees with me on that, on the physical talents, but he had him dropped to the second round because of character concerns. Now, Ian Rappaport reported that the reason he fell was because he did some reality show when he was 17 years old, 5 years ago. Okay, just to reiterate, when I was 17 years old, if I had been making decisions about my life, I probably would have an Adam Ant tattoo on my arm because that's what I thought was cool. People change. It's ridiculous to hold that against him, but that apparently is what torpedoed his draft candidacy into the ridiculous levels of the fourth or fifth or sixth round. Fifth round is where he went. Third, fourth, fifth. He shouldn't have been there. He should have been gone. But as things stood, he was there at 102. And I thought, okay, I'm not wild about Byron Murphy, and I'm not wild about Christian Haynes. But if you add Spencer Rattler to this mix at 102 and still have another pick at 118 in the third round, in the fourth round, and can get another good player at 118 in a position of greater need, I'd be okay with that. I might have slipped this draft up to a B or even an A minus. But of course, Seahawks being idiots and not understanding that without a top star quarterback, you don't win in this league, they passed on that. In fact, they traded the 102 pick away to get 121 and 136 from the Broncos, or 207, and we gave them back 235, something along those lines in that trade. So, okay, maybe Rattler will make it through to 118. He did. Did they take him? No. Fuck no. They took Tyrese Knight, a linebacker from UTEP, who was overdrafted by a couple of rounds. Rob again shared today. He shared the most overdrafted guys in this draft as listed by Warren Sharp, who I do actually have some respect for. Tyrese Knight, the linebacker, was drafted at 118. His value was expected to be 192, which is deep into the sixth round. So he was overdrafted by 2 rounds. It gets even worse when you slide back to, let's open this in a new window. When you slide back to the actual draft itself and you look at what linebackers were still available at 118. First of all, I should have taken a quarterback. They didn't. So the Seahawks take somebody named Tyrese Knight, who was not even on our radar. Let's look at the other linebackers who went after him. And we're not even talking about other positions. Jordan McGee from Temple, highly regarded player. JT Bertrand from Notre Dame. Don't know much about him. Tommy Eichenberg, one of my favorites, an instinctive football player who people say he's not athletic, which is ridiculous. He was plenty athletic in college. Tommy Eichenberg was still there. I would have taken Tommy Eichenberg over Tyrese, whatever his name is. Other linebackers, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., great pedigree, solid talent, recognized by most people as a third or fourth round pick. If they take Trotter, that's a value pick as opposed to a bad value pick. Eden Shafono from Washington. Don't know much about him. Not really a film guy. And so, really, this is the range where this guy should have been taken. Instead, the Seahawks take him at the fourth round pick, and they they overcomplicate that. They on top of that, not only did they take a linebacker, they took the wrong linebacker, and they didn't take a quarterback, Spencer Rattler. I'm like, okay, picking again at 121. Maybe they'll grab him there. He survives to 121. Do they take Rattler again? No. They take a tight end, AJ Barner from Michigan, who is a blocking tight end, not a pass catcher, a blocker. The tight end room, the Seahawks, is one of the worst in the league. I don't really have a problem with them taking a tight end, but when you slip back over to the draft board and you look at 121, and they took AJ Barner. You look at the guys they could have taken there, and this is just tight ends. This is not even other positions. Jared Wiley, tight end, goes to the Chiefs from TCU. Do you think the Chiefs might know a little more about quality tight ends than the Seahawks? We've had Will Disley the last 5 years, miserable 5 years. Maybe Jared Wiley was better. And then we slide down into the fifth round a little deeper, and more tight ends go. Who else was still on the board that we could have taken at tight end? Tanner McLaughlin, who I actually took in my last mock draft in the fourth or fifth round. Better pass catcher. Cade Stover. Where's Cade Stover? Did I miss him? Goes all the way. Jaheim Bell from Florida State goes. Devin Culp from the University of Washington. These are all guys I would have preferred to the Michigan. I must have missed Cade Stover. He must have gone slightly after we took AJ Barner. Yeah, Cade Stover, 2 picks afterwards to Houston. These guys are all better players than AJ Barner. So not only, once again, did they take the wrong position, they should have taken the quarterback, Spencer Rattler. Instead, they take a tight end. And oh, hey, on top of that, they take a tight end who's not good. He's only a blocker. He doesn't catch the ball very well. And as Rob pointed out on his broadcast yesterday, he's 246 pounds. And blocking tight ends, in order to translate what they do as a blocker in college to the pros, need to be about 260, 265. That's what Will Disley was. He was nothing but a blocking tight end. So they took a guy who's probably too small to even fulfill the role they want to put him in. But hey, he went to Michigan, big school, so he's great. So now they've blown that pick. It's even worse when you look at the guys they could have had. They could have had beyond that. But we had the first pick in the fifth round, pick 136. Oh, maybe the quarterback that they need. First or second round talent was slipped to 136. Guess what? We're up on 136, and he's there. Who do we take? We take Nehemiah Pritchett, a cornerback. A cornerback. Again, let's just slide on over real quickly. Let's slide on over and look at the value board for Moore and Sharp. Oh, he's not on there. I thought he was on there. This is not a guy that was expected to go as a corner at that level. But when you look at the Seahawks depth chart, you have to ask yourself a very serious question. What the fuck did they need a cornerback for? At left cornerback, they already had Michael Jackson. They had Trey Brown, who was a starter, had a great rookie season. Andrew Whitaker. At right cornerback, where they're going to apparently play this guy, they already had Tariq Woolen, who went to the Pro Bowl as a rookie and then dropped off last year. On top of that, they already have Devon Witherspoon, who, let's face it, can play outside if they really want him to. So they already had 3 starting level corners. What did they need Nehemiah Pritchett for? And the answer is they did not need him. They also have Artie Burns from Chicago, who's been with the team for a couple of years. And they have Kobe Bryant, who is probably listed as a safety, a free safety, who also was drafted as a corner. So they had 5 guys, and cornerback was not a need. Now, what did John Schneider say about this? He said, "Well, they were the top guy on our board, so we had to take him." No, you didn't. You don't want to reach for need, but you also don't want to be a slave to your draft board. This is a lesson this idiot hasn't learned. He either reaches for need or is a slave to his draft board. Both philosophies will get you mediocre to poor drafts and middle of the road records. You have to know when to use your value, and you have to know when to take a shot. This guy never takes a shot at the quarterback position. So 3 times now on the second day, we have passed on a quarterback of the future who's got the talent to be a starter in a couple of years. Absolutely has that talent, physical talent for sure. To take a linebacker that we overdrafted, a tight end that we overdrafted, and a corner that we overdrafted and didn't need. So that's where we're at this point. So, of course, Rattler went at pick 150 to the New Orleans Saints. I believe that's correct. Yeah, pick 150. So we blew our chance to get the quarterback that we needed to move forward. Now, a lot of people are making the argument, including Rob Staten, that, well, there must be a reason all these teams pass on him over and over again. After the first round, there were only 3 quarterback needy teams left. The Raiders, the Saints, who took him, and the Seahawks. So there were hi Myrtle Mayhem. The reality is, yeah, there were teams that passed on him. My answer to that is, so what? 24 teams passed on Aaron Rodgers. He's going to the Hall of Fame. 74 teams passed on Russell Wilson. He's going to the Hall of Fame. 198 teams passed on Tom Brady. He's going to the Hall of Fame. 31 teams passed on Lamar Jackson. Pretty sure he's going to the Hall of Fame. 268 teams passed on Brock Purdy. He was in the Super Bowl last year and played great for the 49ers. So that argument is logically fallacious. Obviously, there was some bad info out there on Spencer Rattler. Maybe he had a bad interview with the Seahawks. I don't know. But was he worth taking a chance on, a character risk at 102 with the 102nd pick? Yeah. Traded it away. Was he worth taking a risk on at the 118th pick? Yeah. Was he worth taking a risk on with the 121st pick? Yeah. And was he worth taking a risk on with the 136th pick? Fuck yeah. But the Seahawks didn't do any of that. Why didn't they do that? Because they are delusional about the state of desperation that they have at this position. They have a 34-year-old quarterback whose best year, lifetime journeyman career quarterback, whose best year was 2022, who took a 30% or so decline in 2023, and who isn't going to get better. In fact, I'm going to tell you again what I told you last year. He would decline by a significant margin, 20, 25%. I was dead right. I'm telling you, He may be about the same this year or maybe even slightly better than 2023. He will never get back to the level he was at 2022. And by the way, 2022 was not good enough. His play was not good enough to win a Super Bowl, not in key moments, not against the best teams. His record against the best teams is abysmal. Geno Smith is not a solution at best. He's a bridge quarterback. So they traded for Sam Howell. Who is Sam Howell? The guy who led the NFL in interceptions last year. He's not a very good football player. He has a lot, like I said, to unlearn before he can start to learn and get better. And Spencer Rattler has significantly superior physical tools to Sam Howell. So by this point, with Rattler off the board, they have blown this draft, and their passing on him is not justifiable. And using the excuse, oh, well, other teams passed on him is not justifiable. Go back to the list of quarterbacks I just gave you. Now, am I saying Spencer Rattler's going to the Hall of Fame? Of course not. But I think he has a chance to be a really good starter no later than year 2. I think he belongs in that group of the first 7 guys who all went in the first round, talent-wise. And the Seahawks continue to make the excuse, well, we just didn't have an opportunity to draft a quarterback. Yeah, you did. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. You had a chance to draft the best quarterback left on the board. They say, well, we tried to trade up for Michael Penix, or they let that rumor leak. They just do that. They let these rumors. John Schneider was interested in Josh Allen. John Schneider was interested in Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, sure he was. Not enough to make a move for them. And so here we are, about to spend 40 years in the quarterback wilderness. Okay, maybe not we're not going to be like the tribe of Jews. Maybe it's only going to be 5 to 10 years. But until we replace this incompetent clown general manager, John Schneider, that we have, and get somebody in here who understands that the way you win in the NFL in 2024 is with a star quarterback and goes and gets one, we may as well not even bother. We are once again an 8-9, 9-8, 7-10, 10-7 football team, and no better than that. And sadly, no worse than that, because we have to be a lot worse to get up into the top of the draft next year. Now everybody says, oh, well, we can go next year. We can get Quinn Ewers next year. I like Quinn Ewers. I would have taken him over a lot of guys in this draft. If Quinn Ewers had been there at 16 and we didn't take him, that would have been a fireable offense, maybe even a hanging offense, but we won't go that far. But other than him, the 2025 draft class is ass. It's ass. It sucks. This is the best quarterback draft class in a long time. And after they failed to find the diamonds in the rough in 2022, Brock Purdy, maybe Sam Howell wouldn't be quite as bad if they had been bringing him along slowly and taking him in the 4th round instead of Kobe Bryant, who's probably not even going to be on the team this year. Or 2023, when we had 5 and 20 and next year's picks and had a chance to trade up to the number 1 pick with the Bears and take CJ Stroud. They liked Anthony Richardson. That shows you how stupid Schneider and Carroll are about quarterbacks, at least. So then they went back to the draft in the 6th round. They had 3 6th rounds picks. They took Satoa Lamua, an offensive guard from Utah. They took DJ James, another cornerback from Auburn. They took 2 Auburn corners. And Mike Jarrell, an offensive tackle from Findlay, wherever that is. I want to look at Mike Jarrell. I don't know the scouting on him. I believe I heard he is a left tackle, that he's played left tackle. If true, that could be a sign that they're not that wild about Charles Cross. I don't blame them. They spent the 9th pick in the draft on him, and he's an average starter at best. I also hear Nehemiah Pritchett might be a kick returner. That they could use him as a kick returner and, replace D. Eskridge or LaVishka Chenault or somebody like that. Maybe that's why they took him. But if you look at the draft chart again, the depth chart, um, if you look at that, they absolutely didn't need to take even one corner, much less two. Corner was a position where you um, bring in a couple of guys in a season like this, where with the roster you have, you bring in a couple of undrafted free agents and see if they can play. So they now have three right guards, essentially no left guard, except Lake and Tomlinson, who everybody complains about because he's over 30 and didn't play very well last year. And the only way this is going to work is if you move Fant, let's say, over to left guard. He's played left tackle before. I'm sure he could play left guard. He's got some experience doing that. Or take Anthony Bradford, Christian Haynes, or Satoa Lamua, and take them completely out of their comfort zone and switch them from the right side to the left side. So then I get the flack on Rob's blog and on the internet and in my Twitter about, oh, well, hey, they're finally building in the trenches. So that's good. That's the way you build a great football team. No, you build a great football team around a star quarterback. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. So for the people that say that, I want to review what they've done the last couple of years in the draft and in free agency. I keep hearing how the Seahawks need to invest in the trenches to become a winning team. No, they need to get a quarterback. But okay. The fact is, they've done that the last 2 years. They drafted Charles Cross. They drafted Abe Lucas. They drafted Boye Mafe. They drafted Olu Oluwatimi. They drafted Tyreek Smith. They drafted Derek Hall. They drafted Anthony Bradford. They drafted Mike Morris. They drafted Cameron Young. They signed Jaron Reed in free agency. They traded the second round pick and gave a huge contract to Leonard Williams. Those are all trench players. So let's go down this list. Charles Cross, average starter. Abe Lucas, average starter. Played pretty good when he was healthy, can't stay healthy. Boye Mafe, average starter. 9 sacks last year, 8 the first half of the season, 1 the second half of the season. Major fall off. Has some potential. These three guys all have potential. Olu Oluwatimi, not applicable, didn't play. Tyreek Smith didn't play. Derek Hall, bust. Didn't even get on the field last year. Second round pick. What was he? 40th pick. Anthony Bradford, below average starter. Forced to start him. Would not have played if we had a decent left or right guard. Mike Morris didn't play. Cameron Young didn't play. Leonard Williams, average starter. We spent a second round pick and a huge contract on a guy who's an average starter. Jaron Reed, average starter. So as you can see, the problem isn't that the Seahawks haven't invested in the trenches. They have. The problem is that they suck at it. So when you look at this list, and then you look at the Seahawks draft picks, why would you have any confidence at all that the guys who drafted that bunch of mediocrities has somehow hit a home run with Byron Murphy and Christian Haynes? Now, I would love to get Rob on my show and ask him, well, how do you have Byron Murphy rated compared to this defensive tackle or that defensive tackle? Let's say Jalen Carter from last year. Where do they rank in terms of just pure physical on-field talent? Where does Christian Haynes rank with guys that have gone at guard the last couple of years? Anthony Bradford, for instance. I'd like to look at Rob's horizontal board. I suspect Bradford was a fourth or fifth round pick last year, kind of where they took him. Rob likes these last two drafts because they took guys about where he had them evaluated. But the evaluation process is imprecise. And although I think Rob Staten is better at it than most people, everybody misses, including me. So what do I think is the future for the Seattle Seahawks? I think it's 5 years in the quarterback wilderness with mediocre records. They'll be picking 10 to 20, somewhere in that range for the next 5 years. And until they get a general manager who understands how you win football games in 2024 and goes and gets a star quarterback or takes a risk on a guy who has some star qualities, we're not even worth watching. We're irrelevant. I I will be shocked if the Seahawks have more than 3 national TV appearances this year. The only 2 stars on this team are DK Metcalf and Devon Witherspoon, and maybe someday Kenneth Walker will be a star. Nobody else is a star quality player. Nobody else is in the top 15 at their position in the NFL. Their quarterbacks are in the bottom half of the NFL. There are probably backups that are better than the quarterbacks the Seahawks have. I think Spencer Rattler's going to be a starter in 2 years. I think they're going to win a lot of football games in New Orleans with him throwing the ball around. And while I do not think he is a superstar, I think he will make a Pro Bowl here and there. And he is good enough to win a Super Bowl with. And the Seahawks quarterbacks aren't. And there is no path forward that I can see where they're going to get a quarterback of the caliber they need to become relevant again. None. So this draft is a D at best. C minus, D. That's where it's at. It's not a good draft. The last 2 drafts, C's. A lot of average players. A couple of guys with potential, 2, 3 guys, potential. But as of now, they're also completely wasting DK Metcalf's career. They may as well trade him now. If they can get a first and a third for him next year, they may as well trade him. Because the quarterbacks they have aren't going to really be able to get him the ball consistently in the big moments and with enough frequency to get him paid. But they're going to have to pay him because he's their best player by a long shot. So they're going to have to pay him 28 to 30 million a year on a new contract next off season. That's what they're facing. Imagine doing that and not having a quarterback. Imagine doing that and not having a quarterback and thinking that you're good enough. That's John fucking Schneider. So I'm going to start a new hashtag, which is Fire John Schneider. I'm sure it's out there already. I'm going to use it a lot in the next couple of years because that's the only way this team goes forward. So let's slide on over and just see how the rest of the NFC West did. How did our opponents do? How did the guys that we have to get past do? Let's start with the division champion. Where are they? San Francisco 49ers. What did their draft look like? Well, let's take a look. They got Ricky Pearsall, wide receiver, in the first round. And I think they still trade one of Debo or Brandon Ayuk. Bernardo Green, pretty decent corner. Dominic Pooney, really good offensive tackle. Malik Mustafa, awesome safety. A guy the Seahawks could have had in the 4th round. I don't know the rest of their guys, not guys that I'm familiar with. They got a lot of people really like Isaac Guerendo, their running back. A lot of people really like him. Think that he's going to be a star player. I think they improved overall, and we'll see how they do with the rest of their trades. How did the Arizona Cardinals do? Well, they did great on volume. They got Marvin Harrison Jr. is an elite player, one of the elite players in the draft. The rest of the guys don't really know any of these players very well. Max Melton I'd heard of. A lot of people are underwhelmed by their draft. So I give the 49ers a B. I give the Cardinals a B simply because of Harrison and volume. The Rams, however, Los Angeles Rams killed it. They killed it. They got Jared Verse, one of the guys I would have rather had than Byron Murphy at 16. If I had a gun to my head and I couldn't take Spencer Rattler and I had to draft Somebody I probably would have taken verse, pass rusher. They got Braden Fisk, inside defensive tackle at 39. What are you going to do, Seahawks fans, when Braden Fisk turns out to be better than Byron Murphy? Then what are you going to say? Blake Corum, excellent running back from Michigan. Cameron Kitchen, solid safety. Brennan Jackson, defensive end. I'd give that an A for Verse and Fisk, Corum, and Kitchens. Brennan Jackson is a stud. Getting him in the 5th round, he's probably better than most of the guys that most of the guys as edges. So, again, the worst part about what we did in the third day, the fourth round, is that there were other guys that we could have taken. Let's just pretend we didn't take Spencer Rattler in the 4th round. Let's say Mike doesn't get his wish. Who could we have had at 118 and 121? Cade Stover, Malik Mustafa. Would anybody be complaining if we had those two guys? TJ Tampa, if we're going to take a corner. And Malik Mustafa. Maya Pritchett, well, Cedric Van Pran, could have had him. Tommy Eichenberg, could have had him. Spencer Rattler, should have had him. Brennan Jackson, Jeremiah Trotter. These are all guys that were more highly regarded than the guys we took. So what is the Seahawks grade for this particular draft? I already gave it to you. It's a flat D. This draft is nearly a flunk. Maybe the first 2 guys might amount to something. It's doubtful the rest of them do. And the Seahawks are worse than a bad team. You know why? Because a bad team at least is relevant. Because they get high draft picks and they have a chance to improve their team and be something the next year. The Seahawks do not have that chance. They are an abject mediocrity. I don't think they're going to be on TV national TV more than 2 or 3 times next year. If I was the networks, I wouldn't want them at all. For what? For what? I would put the Seahawks out there as the opponent of whoever was going to come in and crush them. I think this is probably the worst I've felt as a Seahawks fan since 2009, when Tim Ruskell was still in charge. I knew he was an idiot, and Jim Mora was the coach, and I knew they were going nowhere. And they had a chance to draft Mark Sanchez, the quarterback, and didn't take it. They drafted the safest pick in the draft, Aaron Curry, who didn't know how to play football, at number 4 or 5. Now, you can say Sanchez was not a huge success in the NFL. He had a lot of success early. He played in AFC Championship game. He beat Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. He outplayed Tom Brady on those days. With the right coaching staff, like, I don't know, Mike Holmgren, he could have been something. But no, they fired Mike Holmgren and brought in Jim Mora. And then we got the Pete Carroll era. So I'm not going to talk about the Seahawks for a while because I don't hold out much hope. And the worst thing is not only that, I don't hold out hope because they're not going to change the general manager and the owner's not going to sell. The owner is a woman who doesn't understand football, and she has allowed these 2 clowns, Pete Carroll and John Schneider, to fuck this franchise up to the nth degree. As long as we had Russell Wilson, we had a chance to go to the Super Bowl every year. If we got lucky in the draft, if we struck lightning in a bottle in free agency, we had a chance to go to the Super Bowl because Russ was that great. And even when they traded Russ, he still had that greatness in him. In a horrible situation in Denver, with everybody hating on him, with a coach actively undermining him on a regular basis, He had 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and a 98 quarterback rating at the age of what, 34, 35. Russ remains a fucking stud. And I don't necessarily object to trading him. I object to trading him and having no plan to replace him, which is what the Seattle Seahawks have done. If I won a $10 billion lottery and could buy the Seahawks, and I signed the paperwork and it went into effect on such and such a date at 12 midnight, 30 seconds after 12 midnight, John Schneider would be fired, and I would have tweeted it out on social media. And then we'd go get our quarterback. But that's not going to happen. So we have the next 2-3, it'll be another 2 or 3 years before this owner figures out that he's the problem, that Schneider is the problem. Least. So get ready for 2 or 3 years of, I don't know how to describe this, absolute shit. Thanks for being here. That's going to do it. I don't have my outro music because something happened to my video. But thanks for being here. Those of you that are here, those of you that aren't here, please like and subscribe this video. Even if you hate this video, like and subscribe the video, subscribe to the channel so you can keep hating on me. Slide on over to the Seahawk Boys Fearless and Stupid NFL channel. Become a subscriber. Comment. I have to remember, for some reason, when I set up in Restream, for some reason it sets it up so that you can't comment, and then I have to go in and fix it. And sometimes I forget, but I promise I try. And also, please follow me over on Twitter X at Seahawk Boy Mike Barra. Seahawk Boy Mike Barra. You'll know me from the John Schneider, Pete Carroll clown faces. Thank you, Kimberly Reg, for that. Saw the first pass that Jim Zorn ever completed to Steve Largent in the Kingdom. So happy the Pete Carroll era is over, but not happy with what's happened since. So thanks for being here. We'll see you next time. I don't know when that's going to be. Probably when we get some more news worth commenting on.